Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a very important book. It's from the Common Law Library, from Sweet Maxwell, Thomson, Reuters. It's Where the Law is to be Found in the Law of Evidence, and it's known as Phipson on Evidence, well known to practitioners and judges, and of course to many law students and academics. The current edition, which has now come out, I'm recording this in 2018 in the summer. The edition has come out, 19th edition, under the general editorship of Hodge, Malek, Queen's Counsel, with a substantial team of specialist editors. And Mr. Malek, of course, is well known to many people. The title that Elizabeth and I have given for our book review is this. Now in a new edition from Sweet Maxwell, the definitive title on evidence, and that's exactly what Phipson is. Now, before we go any further, let's look at the book. The reason we do these reviews is so that you, as either practitioners or interested in law or unrepresented parties, will know what the law is about. So these are informative videos to try and let you understand what the book is about itself. There's the front and there's the side of it. These books should be available in reference libraries, not necessary in all, but they should be available, so you should be able to find out where the law is, because that's what these publications are designed to do. That's the index, which is by paragraph numbering, and they have a special what they call a legal taxology, which I shall just get to, which shows you when we get to it at the end, it shows you how the structure of the index goes. Legal taxonomy, there we go. And as I say, by paragraph numbering, it explains where you can find things. I do find the index very helpful, and as you can see, the paragraph numbering is there, and there are of course footnotes throughout. We go to the front of the book. The book runs to 1600 odd pages, 1600 odd pages. There is the front page, and that's the list of all of the other publications in the Common Law Library. Very extensive. It's, as I say, it is where the law is, and there's no question about that, in my opinion, and that of everybody else as far as I'm concerned. Now, that's the detail about the book, and these are the people who've been involved as specific editors. Very large number of people, many of whom will be well known to you. You can see that Sidney L. Phipson wrote the first book in 1892, and it's been running along ever since. And there's a very useful addition to the 19th edition from Rupert Jackson, and Sir Rupert does what I've expected him to do, which is go straight to the point. His foreword is well worth reading. Then the preface as well, of course, is also well worth reading from Hodge, Malek. Now the table of contents, very detailed, and as you can see, what you've got is you've got the name of the person who's actually written the individual chapter, and we run through from the there are in fact 44 chapters, so 44 numbers. You can see the paragraph numbering there, the chapter number corresponding to the first digit of the paragraph numbering. Then the table of cases, again very substantial number of cases in evidence. Evidence is very, very heavily covered with case law. I don't know how many pages, but it's a massive amount. You can see the amount just by the thickness. It's that lot there. So there's a very large number of cases. Then, of course, we've got the statutes. Again, there's a lot of statute law coming in, because the aim eventually will be to have all of this codified, I've no doubt, eventually. It takes a long time, but we're getting there with it all. Then the CPR, table of civil procedure rules, which is again very helpful. Then the statutory instruments. Then after that we get into the book itself, and you can see very much the house style for Sweet Maxwell and the Common Law Library. You have the title and you have an index. Then you have an introduction, and of course you've got the paragraph numbering at the side there, and then you've got the footnoting at the bottom, and that's how it runs through all the way through the book. If I just don't get in the middle. Right, what do we say about this book? Well, quite a lot. The reviews, we've done these reviews before, and they're on the web, in the journals, and also on the internet. But we say this. Again, Elizabeth and I talked about the book in some detail, and Elizabeth wrote the original draft. This is what we're basically saying. Evidence. Now, there's a vast and detailed subject here, and absolutely crucial it is too to the study and practice of law. It's often controversial, often bewildering, and it never ceases to fascinate and confound. And I have to say, having taught evidence and having had initially some difficulties understanding it, it's not the easiest subject in the world by any means. So don't assume when you look at it, oh, that's very straightforward, we understand how it is. It's about detail. It's the meticulous approach to understanding how certain pieces of evidence are admitted, certain pieces are excluded, and the basic rules across a whole range of different areas. And of course the historic background through the common law is incredibly important as well, which is why this book, whilst it's for practitioners primarily, it's very important for the judges, all members of the profession and students, and it's also of high academic importance because I've used this book when I taught evidence at university, and I do think, because there's a lot of academic argument in it as well, that it's a very important book at any level of your legal studies. Fortunately then, we've got the Common Law Library, which is an innovation in its own right. Sweet Maxwell to be congratulated for continuing to produce these publications, which is where the law is. There's no question in my mind that this is where you will find with Halsbury the basic laws and the opinions which count as to what a particular case ratio decidendi means, or what is an Act of Parliament, the effect of an Act of Parliament. So fortunately, as I say, for practitioners and the judiciary grappling with evidential issues, there's Phipson on evidence. And it's one of those stalwart, reliable legal texts that seems to have been around forever. And it has, of course, since 1892, under the editorship originally of Sidney L. Phipson, who continued as its editor until the 6th edition after the First World War in 1921. Venerable as it is, of course, regular updating has kept it forever young, and you get the cumulative update service as well with the book. And so it is, of course, with the new edition, which we've got now, the 19th, would you believe, from the publisher, Sweet Maxwell. It's been edited since 2005 by Hodge, Malek, Queen's Counsel, with his crack team of 11 specialists in the field. And the new edition reflects the changes that have taken place since the previous edition came out in 2013, and we reviewed it then, and I did a video at that time. It's an important work and one I've found extremely helpful. Not surprising, Phipson, of course, has proved well nigh indispensable to generations of lawyers and students of law who traditionally have regarded it as the definitive work, described by Rupert Jackson in the foreword as, quote, a really useful and up-to-date practitioner's textbook on the law of evidence. Absolutely right, Sir Rupert. He also remarks that, quote, writing or updating legal textbooks is literally a thankless labour. You labour for many hours, you produce a splendid tome to spoon-feed the legal profession and the judiciary, and no one ever thanks you. And I know exactly how he feels, because he's actually written a lot of books, and I've met him and interviewed him, and he's absolutely right. We do an awful lot of this spoon feeding, and the bottom line on it is we don't get much thanks, the people who produce it all. But I'm thanking them now on your behalf, because these books are very important. Now, it may remind some of Dr. Johnson's self-deprecating definition of a lexicographer as, quote, a harmless drudge. Well, why argue, except to say that out of the drudgery and hard graft there sometimes comes enlightenment, as has been the case with Phipson. And as Rupert Jackson also observes, the style is fresh and clear, and that, I think, is a very reasonable and decent statement for him to make, so thank you. There is also much new material in this new edition, reflecting the changes that have come to pass since the previous edition of 2013. And all the chapters, of course, have been updated, including, for example, the chapter on bad character, a very important area, on expert evidence, and of course a lot more, depending on what you're looking for. But I would say that anybody who's certainly practicing or have of substantial interest in law, this is a book you should know about and know your way around. Now, within its about 1,700 pages, this volume indeed covers virtually every conceivable aspect of evidence. The section on statistical and survey evidence, for instance, will be of interest in the political sphere, certainly market research, as it may be applied to consumer surveys and all those frequently occurring opinion polls. Whether or not such evidence is merely hearsay and under what circumstances is clearly explained, because clarity is the key word here, opening up further avenues of future inquiry and debate. And there's a lot of cross-referencing. The footnotes are particularly helpful for that. So fortunately for the practitioner, this massive work of reference is structured for ease of use, with a detailed table of contents and an extensive index, again paragraph numbered. There are in addition 250 pages of tables. That's covering the cases which I showed you earlier, together with statutes, the CPR, foreign legislation and SIs, and also there's an appendix of miscellaneous statutes and rules at the back. So to conclude, in the words of its general editor, this is an academic and practitioner work that offers erudition and authority combined with accessibility. And there can't be too many practitioners out there who can possibly do without it. And the date of the publication, as I've indicated, is cited at 2018. And I would like again to say a very big thank you to everybody who's been involved in this book, because they don't get enough thanks. And at the end of the day, we rely on this sort of work for what we do. There it is again, Common Law Library. It's important for those of you who are unrepresented to know about this book too, because you never quite know what is going to be produced. Let me just open it up right in the middle. Here we go. Bad character of the accused, prosecution aspects. See how it's structured? You've got an index, you've got the paragraph numbering, a lot of information. Slap bang up to date as well, and important. Bearing in mind, a lot of changes taking place. Criminal Justice Act 2003 covering, and then of course you've got a whole range of other things, and a very substantial amount of work involved. Plus not just the statute but the common law. And again you can see a lot of footnoting. Certainly the case law is very well covered as well. So all in all, it's a first-class book, and as I've said, it's part of the Common Law Library. We can't do our work without this type of service. Very grateful to Sweet Maxwell and Thomson Reuters for continuing to publish this work, because it's where the law is. It's created, it's where it is, and without it we would have a much, much more difficult job to do. It's difficult enough as it is, but it would be far worse. Thank you to Mr. Malek, and thank you to all the people involved in producing this brilliant title. Bye-bye.